All right, we are live. I want to welcome everybody here to this show. Normally I'm doing Q&A, but I have a couple of interviews going on, and today I was really fortunate enough to get Tameika Reed on the line, and also Dionne, okay? These ladies are founder and co-founder of a website called Women in Linux. Tameika has been in the field for 17 years as a Linux administrator, right?
Yes.
So we've got some knowledge to kind of extract from her. And the reason I'm excited about this broadcast is because there are a lot of ladies out there that have asked me questions. And so, hey, this is going to be a perfect type of conversation so that you can get some really good insight as to what it's like for a woman in the information technology field, because it's an entirely different perspective, being that probably 99% of the field consists of male. So,
yeah.
Welcome, ladies.
Hey, how are you?
Doing awesome. Thank you so much again for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
Tameika, I want to take this back, okay? Prior to 17 years,
okay.
What I'd like to know, and one of the biggest questions that I always get is, how do I even get my foot in the door, okay? So before we get to that one, tell us a little bit about when you got started in IT and how it happened. Where'd you get, where did that interest come from? Kind of a little bit of history behind that.
Okay, so I give you some history all the way back to when I was 12. So one of the things was the home shopping network was really big at the time, and I wanted a computer. So I actually asked my mom and my dad, can I get a computer? Eventually, I ended up with a Tandy, and my mom was like, "You can't hook that up to my TV because it's gonna mess it up." The old saying, "Don't mess up my TV."
Yeah.
Fast forward in high school, I took Apple II classes and typing and just general computer classes in high school. And then as I went on to college, I wanted to be a computer engineer. It's just something that I thought it was different. It was cool. I was like, I wanted to build a computer. I wanted to get into, the internals of a computer. So I said, oh, I should be a computer engineer. Dropped out of college, went back in '99, and I didn't even know what I was so scared of the computer. I didn't know what a screensaver was. I had no clue about, from '93 to '99, my knowledge of computers was totally different. So I started out with the basics of doing Windows, Word, not WordPerfect, but Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and then I just kept building upon that. And then got to Hawaii, got married, moved to Hawaii, and I was in school, and I was on campus one day at Honolulu Community College, and they were bringing in a whole bunch of computers and so forth and so on. And I asked the guy, I said, what are you guys doing? And he was like, we're building out our new facility for Cisco. And he's like, Hawaii is going to be the new Pacific Rim IT world, I guess, if you want to call it that, for Cisco. And he said, you should sign up for the class. So I signed up for the class, and I started taking Cisco classes. And the guy was like, oh my God, he's like, this command line in Cisco is just like Linux. I said, so, if I go learn Linux, I'm going to be better at Cisco? Then that's what I'm going to do. And that's totally opposite of what Cisco is versus what Linux is. And I just started from there. I bought a SUSE computer for him for like $72, and we started it up, and I was like, man, what am I supposed to do now? How do I get on the internet? He's like, that's up for you to figure out. So, and I did. I went to the bookstore. I went to Barnes and Nobles and bought books off the shelf for SUSE. I bought books off the shelf for Red Hat. I even bought Red Hat off the shelf. And then I just started playing with it, and I just started making my own documentation and teaching myself Linux. So I'm self-taught for Linux.
That's fantastic. I want everyone to really understand what she just said, that she is self-taught, because a lot of people think that going to school is going to really give them everything they need, and that's really
Mm.
false information. I try to pound that into people. So thanks for saying that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Um, Dionne, you want
Yes.
to tell us a little bit about how you got involved? I know it's not 17 years, but tell the listeners what happened with you.
No, it's
What is
not.
your story?
No, it's not 17 years, but the story is basically pretty similar to Tameika's. Like, in you know, I went to school, and we got introduced to computers when everybody had to go to the computer lab and learn typing and all that stuff. But growing up, I only had one friend with a computer. I went to school where we had to go to the computer lab, and you had the floppy disk, and then it got smaller, and you thought you were cool with the neon colors. I've always used the computer from a user perspective, word processing, accounting, just the typical office user. And so when me and Tameika became friends, for me, I'm all about systems. I'm a natural born organizer, so it puts me in a project manager type of realm. And so very analytical mind, but I can translate it very simply to my client. So she heard me on the phone one day, and I was basically talking to a client about a POS system and what he should be doing to get the type of data that he needs. Because I was asking him simple questions, and his POS should have the answers for him, but he was not using it, and I was laughing, and I said, "Well, people buy all this technology, and he's only using it to ring in the money for his business, his retail business." So she was just like, "Huh, I think you would be really good in technology as a project manager." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And she was like, "Well, I knew she was a computer engineer, but she started telling me about Linux and just other things." And I was just like, "Tell me more." And it was so funny because in telling me more, she got this book. She was so excited, and she started talking to me. And if somebody's been in it for years, they're going to communicate in their language. And I literally fell asleep on her shoulder. And, but it sparked enough where she was just like, "Well, uh let me make this simpler for you." So I did Linux Academy, start watching videos, looking at books. She got me like a Linux Pocket guide, and it kind of started my journey on where where do I want to be in technology? Because here I am. I'm not fresh out of high school. I'm not fresh out of college. I'm well into my 30s, and here I'm excited about starting a new career, but I don't want to leave this. I want to expand on the knowledge base that I already have, and not just say I want to start over and with the help desk. That wasn't an option for me. So that's how I started my journey in technology.
That's awesome. And here's another point that you said that a lot of people talk about is, am I too old to get started in IT? I get people that say, I'm 28, I don't know what to do. Am I too
Mm.
old to get started? And
No.
it's never too old. I mean, that's
Right.
really the fact of the matter. So thank you for touching on that little tip there. All right, back to Tameika.
Hmm.
Um, how did you get your first job in IT?
I actually was, by this time, I had moved to Seattle from Hawaii. I was going to school at Bremerton Community College, and I went to I guess, the job office uh, every day. I went there every day and looked at jobs that came in, so forth and so on. And they told me after probably like about 6 months later, they were like, "Hey, there's a guy coming in for this that's looking for a Linux person." So I was still teaching myself Linux. So I said, "Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and apply for that job." It was an internship. So I did the interview with him, and And during the interview, he was like, at the end of it, he's like, "Can I take my tie off?" I said, "Yes." I said, "I'm okay with that." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "Everything you're talking about, I have no clue what you're talking about. I just know how to spell Linux, but I got more interviews to do." And I said, "Okay." He said, "So do you know how? You sure you know Linux?" I said, "Well, yeah, I know it is." I said, "I got all A's, and this is what's so funny about Linux is." I took some Linux courses at school. I said, I got all A's in my Linux courses at school. And I said, and I do it at home. I have a home lab set up. I could take a picture for you and bring it in, or whatever you need for me to do. I could show it to you, right? He's like, well, if you got all A's in your classes, that's great. He said, I'll let you know whether or not you got the job. So he's like, it'll be another week or so. I said, okay. So I'm walking around campus. I'm like, man, I hope I get that job. A week later, I go back to the same little job recruiting area, and I see people on the campus that work there, and we're really friendly with each other, and they wasn't speaking to me. And I was like, man, why nobody not talking to me? What did I do wrong? Did I do something wrong in the interview? So I checked my email, and I'm sitting there checking my email, going through it, and I feel people like looking at me, but then I don't really pay attention to them. So next thing you know, I look at my email and I got the job, and they was like, "Oh, we was hoping that you would hurry up and check your email. We couldn't contain ourselves. We knew you had the job." But what that I attribute that to was back then they did have Linux Unix courses, and you would go to these classes. They would show you the cut command, the offset grep, ls, whatever, whatever. But when I got on the job, I knew nothing what I needed to know. I didn't know how to manipulate the kernel. I didn't know anything about writing my own driver. I didn't know how to install drivers. Those classes taught me nothing. What we have today with like the Linux Foundation and even the Red Hat certification and all those things that we have now, back then it was just your IRC channels, and it used to be called Linux Newbies, which now is just Linux.com. But that's all you had, and you went to user meetings, and those user meetings that you normally went to was the, no offense to anyone, but it was the white male with the beard, with the long beard, pot belly, and the glasses.
Very awkward. Very
And
awkward. I have been to a few, and she's just like, it was like she had somebody to welcome into her world. She's just like, I'm so happy you're here, because now, because people don't believe me when I talk about my life. And I was just like, huh, this is kind of awkward.
right,
So
and
I can imagine navigating that alone for so long. Over 10 years is a very long time to be a lone ranger.
right, and then not only are you alone in that, it's the, we're going to include you, but we're not going to include you. I call it pseudo inclusive. You can ask your questions, but even if you did ask your questions, it was, why don't you know that already, or did you look it up before you asked? And so even in user forums, people are very belligerent. The code of ethics in user forums have, you know they're written, but people are still mean
Yeah,
when you go to these user forums. So you asking your question and so forth and so on, you get berated. So then that's not comfortable. So then you're left again, like, I was, okay, so I can't go to the user group and I can't go to the user forum. What am I supposed to do? What do I ask the person on my job? Well, it's only so many questions they're going to answer. And when you are a woman in the field, you're already coming in a little intimidated because you're not sure if you know the stuff, and then you're not sure who to ask, because you're like, this the syndrome. You don't want to seem like you don't know anything, because they hired you because they think you know something.
right.
So it's all of those emotions, and men have it too.
Absolutely.
Men have it too. So it's all of that. So that's why for me, looking at it, it's a lot of it still is being self-taught and having self-confidence. build your own lab and study. Like I can't stress that enough. Like I don't care if you build it at Amazon, I don't care if you buy computers, I don't care if you take your old laptop and turn it and put VMs on your old laptop. But being self-taught has taught me a lot.
You said something really important right at the beginning of that question was you were at the community college and you went and looked at the job boards every single day.
Mm-hmm.
That is consistency and persistence right there.
Right.
There's no room for laziness if you really want to make a breakthrough in your career, and that doesn't matter if it's IT or anything.
Right.
And I really want people to understand that, because this is awesome. You guys are really, you're spitting gold, and I love this. This is really good stuff.
Yeah, I call it being hungry. You have to.
You got to be hungry.
You got to be hungry.
You got to be hungry. There's no room for entitlement. You know, there's the entitlement mentality in this day and age, especially from the young folks, is just really sad. They expect stuff to just show up at their door. That's not the way it works.
Yeah.
You gotta be hungry, like you said, and you gotta work your butt off. There's no way around it.
And even when I'm looking for jobs, you know, if I go out and I go on a job search, like I can remember doing 5 interviews in one day. Like I line them up, and you get to a point where, for me, this is an interview tip for anybody. If you do enough interviews, write down the questions. Even in the interview, if it's online, if it's in person, write down those questions and make a list of interview questions, your own interview questions, and then go back and answer those questions. Because 9 times out of 10, the next interview that you go on is probably going to be the same question. However, you also go and say, I'm going to run these commands on the command line. I'm going to learn how to do this, because now it's memorization, it's persistence, and it's repetitive. So it becomes second nature to you.
Exactly. Now, when you say write down the questions, we're talking about questions that the interviewer asked you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay.
Yep.
That's a really good point. That is awesome. So you started out. When was it that you decided to go get a job back in the day? So you had that interest in Linux, you started studying it. What was the time frame between when you started studying and getting involved until you actually went and got that first job?
The time frame was, it probably may have been a year.
A year?
Because okay. I was working on the school's campus as well too. So I was doing help desk and ghosting machines and taking them to building to put in and help building labs and installing Adobe and doing Mac and the whole 9. So I was doing that already, and I was like, this is nice. I get a chance to get a check, but it doesn't interest me. Like, I don't want to do this. This is not the kind of work I want to do.
But it was experience for your resume, right?
Right. It was experience for my resume, but it also, not only was it experience for my resume, I got a chance to see what I didn't want to do and what other people were doing. I wanted to do that. So I said, I want to be like one of the, I forget her name right now at that college, but for years I had to use her as a reference for my other jobs. But she was a woman in IT. And then when I think about it, there was one black guy at that school that was the director, but he didn't hire me, she did. And we went back and forth, and she would say, you know, you're doing a great job, I know you want to do more, I'm going to start giving you more. But it was from the Windows perspective. They didn't have a lot of Linux boxes.
Right.
So I was like, man, this is taking me out of the realm of what I want to do. And so she was like, well, you know, we're going to incorporate some Linux stuff. And that's when I would go to the labs and stuff, and I would see other guys in there playing with Gen 2 and so forth and so on. And I was just like, I'm going to stick with Red Hat and Fedora and those things, because that's what I've been doing. I've played with them all, but my comfort has been there, and I started looking at jobs. So I started typing in job searches on Monster for Linux jobs, and what was the average pay and how much people were getting paid. Back in 2000, and you're looking at a job and they're paying you 65, $70,000 back in 2000 for you to know Linux. It's huge. And
Yeah.
I was like, and what was so cool about it was you know Linux, but then there was no school out there that taught Linux. So you go to school to go get a degree in computer engineering, but you know Linux. Is the two don't add up. They didn't gel. The concepts gel, programming and learning all that, but that didn't. Linux and computer engineering didn't coincide with what I had to know on the job.
So the one of the main points that you just talked about was you started in the lab doing non-Linux work, okay, and that kind of got your foot in the door. And it's an important point because most people just want to go straight to the job, okay? So they want to say, I want to be a systems administrator, but listen, it doesn't work that way. You got to start out from the bottom, sometimes do what you don't want to do, and then you finally get to where you want to be. So there's no straight shot to the top.
Yeah, I mean, here's my take on that. The straight shot to the top is somebody that knows somebody, or you're really stellar. And when I say you're stellar, like you have that person that sits at home and read all the VMware stuff and did it all. Like there are some people out there that can do that. However, my goal for me and my message to people is you can work the help desk, but don't get complacent.
Right.
Like don't let the help desk be your like your don't let the help desk be your path, like your only path. Look at it as if you're saying, I'm working the help desk and then I see what they're doing over here. You got to think of it like, who built the ticketing system for the help desk? Like, how was that done?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to look at it in those terms. Understanding business, like, because you got to treat yourself as a business because you want to grow.
Yeah, it's laying a solid foundation, and a lot of people, and you said earlier, is a lot of these people, especially kids, the millennials, let's say, they don't understand grounding themselves and building that foundation, because those relationships that you get along the way, you're going to always need. Tameika said a point, like, I use this woman on my resume as a reference for years. These are the building blocks, because when you go in these interviews and they ask you these questions, they end up asking you a fundamental IT questions, and not because they don't think is that's all you know. A lot of times the people that are doing the hiring, they're not even in the field. They're HR people, and they just have a list of questions that the employer told them to ask. And if they get one of three answers, then move them to the next level. So you definitely have to understand how to play the game as well.
This is like, I almost got chills because I talk about all of this stuff, and I don't know how many videos I've got, but I've touched on everything here, and you ladies are just confirming it all. It's absolutely just beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. In this industry, you have to build relationships, because those relationships are lifetime relationships. And when I say lifetime relationships, you never know who you're going to need to speak for you one day, a reference, or somebody is learning something and they're like expanding, or they're starting a business, and you're like, oh, that's cool, tell me more. So now you get a little insight to their world and their business and so forth and so on. So it's always constantly learning and constantly building.
It's networking. I preach this all the time. You've got to build your network of people. You got to build that Rolodex, and you can't burn bridges.
No, No.
The industry is too small. Believe it or not, it's too small.
Yeah, and it's cyclical. It always comes back around.
Always.
It always comes back around. Like I think IBM now their big push now is mainframe. So everybody who was doing mainframe years ago, decades ago, is coming back. So here it is, mainframe is back. So those skills, your IT skills, keep them sharp, but always keep your tools ready in your toolbox. That's what I call it.
That's it. I want to change the subject just a little bit. Certifications is a huge topic in IT.
Mm-hmm.
What is your? Do you have any certificates in Linux? And what's your opinion about the importance of them specific to the Linux field?
So I don't have any certifications, and I know a lot of people who don't have any certifications. Do I think you should get a certification? Do I think you should get a certification? I think it depends on where you're at. And when I say where you're at, city-wise, where you're at. So in the DoD realm, it's you need your security plus, period, hands down. Can't, and then you can do about that, right? So then there is, do I go get my, in this field, do I go get my Docker certification? Do I go get my Java certification? Do I go get my Linux certification? Do I get my CISSP? Do I get my certified ethical certification? Do I get my Wireshark certification? Which certification do I get? How long? How often do I have to renew this? How many CEs do I need? Do I go to CompTIA? Do I go to New Horizon? Do I go to Global Knowledge? Where do I go? Who's the best option? How much is that going to cost me? Is it $5,000 for the class? How is that for a week? Who's going to pay for that? Like I can, I look at it and it's like a $50 million industry. Period. Right?
Yeah.
So my answer is: do I think certifications are important? Yes and no. Yes, depending on that particular job that you're going to apply for. And if you are applying for a job that requires you to get a certification within 3 months, make sure they pay for it. Period. Because it's not affordable. It's not affordable on the cost, and it's not affordable on the time that you got to spend if you got to teach yourself to do it.
Right.
And learn a new job. So, am I studying to get a certification? I'm studying to get a certification as we speak. I'm studying to get my RHCSA, and I'm teaching classes. But after a while, the information becomes redundant. So now Red Hat changed their certification to RHEL 7. Well, RHEL 7 is new for people. If you go look at their security hardening class, their security hardening class is on 6.4. It's not even on RHEL 7. So if I want to learn security for RHEL 7, I gotta wait. I can't take that certification class. So a lot of it is still being self-taught, understanding security, where how to do sticks, how to do Nexus scans, OpenSCAP, all of that. So a lot of that stuff is still self-taught. And then that drives a whole nother conversation of, well, I'm a Linux administrator, but I got to do security too. Well, you go down the security rabbit hole because there's so much to security. That's application security. That's application Burp Suite. Getting a certification for that. I could go on. I say, for me, if you want to be in this field, find a group of people that's like-minded like yourself and study together, or you're going to be the Lone Ranger and go and study yourself. Be your own cheerleader and study. So I go back and forth with certifications. Some employers don't look at it. Some employers do look at it. And again, like I said, it's dependent, because you could go and look at the DoD sector and you can go look at it and say, okay, they tell me I need to have my Security Plus, my VMware, VCP 6, blah 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 blah. And then you got these 5 certifications, and then they tell you we're gonna pay you $60,000. You're crazy.
You're crazy.
You're crazy.
That
That's
is
a, you're
that's a
crazy.
that's a big problem with the industry. That you look at those job descriptions and they're just a mile long. They want you to know all this stuff, and so that
Manslaughter.
I've talked about that too. I
Mhm.
mean, it, you and I started around the same time.
Mhm.
I got my first job in 1999, and in 2000 I got my MCP, and which is pretty much worthless these days,
Mhm.
you know. And then I got my CCNA in 2007, but I never went the Cisco route, and that
Right.
expired. So yeah, you're right. It depends on where you're at in your career. Like right now, my career, almost 18 years in, it's not as much of a importance, you know.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
But for for someone that's looking to get in, they have no prior experience, you know, they're
Mhm.
brand new.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I try to tell people at least get, now this is on outside of Linux, you know, try to at
Mhm.
least get the CompTIA, the A plus, the Net plus, and the Security plus. Just something that to put on your resume, even though I really don't believe in certifications,
Mhm.
you know?
So, with CompTIA, there is a couple of things. Like right now, there's the CompTIA IT Fundamentals course, which kind of covers a broad spectrum, and then there's the Cloud Plus. If I'm talking to someone right now who say they want to get into the industry, I would tell them to go learn Bash, Python, and pick a cloud, AWS or Google, and then pick a microservice, Docker containers, and those would be my basics of that, because mostly everyone is going towards containers. You still have the VMware world, but it's not easy to learn for free. So, you're kind of stuck. So then there's the KVM, the OpenStack, the OpenShift, but you still need the basic and the foundations of networking. You still need the basics and foundations of learning how to load test stuff. What is a load? IOPS, security, how to build out your own infrastructure at home, how to build out an authentication server, whether it's Windows or Linux, Open LDAP, IPA. There's so much basic stuff to learn that gives you a overall fundamental idea of what you could go into. So, but
Right.
if you want to go and get us a certification, I know Cisco right now has their scholarship program for cybersecurity. They got a new program because they realize people are well, we just learned networking online and we don't need nothing else. We can program your stuff, and now what? But no one's teaching security, so they went back and added a security layer to the CCNA portion of that. So you have that. Then you also, I still believe with the Cisco CCNA stuff. I still think that's relevant
Yeah.
because it gives you troubleshooting skills, and it gives you um, networking skills, and on top of networking skills, it gives you a little insight on, like, when you walk into a building, like, how did they network this up, the wireless, the whole nine. So I think it gives you a good foundation of some basics that you need even when you are a Linux administrator or a Windows admin or a security admin. Networking basics 101. You still need that. I still believe that's a good cert to have, just on the fact of the troubleshooting skills.
It's a tough cert. Yeah, it took me 3 times to pass that test.
Yeah.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's definitely a good test. And of course, if you're going the Cisco route, there's no way around it. You need that basic CCNA anyways. But yeah, it's a good conversation about certifications because it's one of the most frequently asked questions I get.
Mhm.
So appreciate you.
I think it's a it weeds certain people out. I like, if I was a business owner and I had all these candidates, you have to now start cherry picking who can do what. But then you, and so you say, I have the candidates, I want the best candidates. So if this candidate went the extra mile to pay for these certs on their own, well, those are skills that I need because that person is a go-getter, they're intuitive. But then when you know the industry, it's just like, well, how long has this person been sitting on these certs? Because you could have got these certs years ago and haven't refreshed your skills, or haven't worked in the field in a very long time. And so, it becomes this balancing act of keep it going back to keep yourself fresh, because if you don't use it, you'll lose it.
Mm.
And so you'll have a list of something that really you can't back up anymore because you haven't touched this stuff in a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great point. I mean, I talk about staying relevant all the time. You got to keep up, keep up. But yeah, I mean, your point about, the isolation process when looking at resumes, I agree. And truly, that's what they're looking for. They really want to see those certifications on your resume. So that's why when people ask me, I just say yes, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in this day and age, that's really what they want to see in any aspect of the IT world, Linux, Windows, it doesn't matter. They want to see some kind of certification on there, and even a lot of them want bachelors, which I don't really agree with all the way. But so, anyways, we could beat that one to death for hours, So, last question before we talk about your Women in Linux movement, because we definitely got to touch on that.
Mm-hmm.
What's kind of like a day in the life of a Linux admin?
That's an interview question. That's literally a question I ask an interviewer. What is the day in life for a Linux admin at your company? That's literally an interview question I ask when I ask questions. So I'm going to answer that with depends on the job you're in. So for me, because I come from do-it-yourself industry, when I was coming through, I do everything. I do sand storage administration as a storage admin. I work on NetApps, EMC, HP. I do security, hardening of machines, disk, any type of scans. I also can build out an OpenStack cluster. I can do Docker. I can do anything that's tasked to me. I can do, because again, I know how to read, I know how to search Google, and I know how to make it happen. So a day in a life for me as a sysadmin encompasses a variety of topics. What you'll normally find is in those job recs that you're looking at, that's exactly what they want. They want you to know exactly that. They want you to know networking, Cisco networking, or some type of networking skills. They want you to know how DNS functions, define DNS, how to build out containers. Everybody runs and use AWS, and I talk about this all the time, but nobody's ever talked about how do you build a cloud. Like Amazon and all of them, we're all end users of them. But even when you are a Linux admin, say for a startup, and they decide that they want you to go work on at that startup and build out their infrastructure in Amazon, you still need to know the basics of security. You still need to know the basics of networking. You still need to know load balancing. So it could be a variety of things. It is job dependent. If you walk in as a Linux admin into a startup, you need to know everything, because they don't have the budget for you not to know it.
Yeah.
So you need to know everything. So it's a hard question. Then you can go work at a company like Rackspace and you do tickets, and you look at the ticket and you say, oh, I need to go over here and back up this person's MySQL database, or their MySQL instance has stopped. Let's find out why. Oh, they filled up their var. It's 100%. Oh, they have on auditing on their machine. Oh, I need to make sure they want to turn that off. Blah, 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 blah. Let's delete these files, put it back in the ticket. What does the customer want to do? And you move on to the next ticket. So it's a variety of things that you could be or could do with that as a Linux admin. So when you look at these job recs, they're all over.
All over.
They're all over.
Yep. Yeah, and I knew what the answer was, to be honest, but I needed you to say it, because
they're all over.
It's administrators wear a lot of different hats,
Hmm.
and that's just what it is. I
And,
mean,
and my personal favorite is babysitting.
so
And, babysitting the user, the end user, the
now,
one that cry.
are you? How many hours a week do you work, approximately?
Uh, I try to do 8 hours, but that's not realistic. It's probably 10-hour days. It used to be 15, 16 hours if you were the the go-to person that had to get it up and running and make sure that it was maintained and answer all the alerts and so forth. So, I mean, it could be that, but you can squeeze it down to 8 hours if you learn automation and put things on autopilot. You could probably do it in 4 hours, and the rest of the other 4 hours you study a day. It depends on you, and depends on how hungry you are to automate things and make sure it's easy for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I say that 40 to 60 hours a week minimum for a systems administrator in IT is just that's about the average.
Yeah, and but like I say, you can make those hours less if you automate, but it's learning what to automate, how to automate it, and keep it up.
Yeah,
And then do knowledge transfer with your team.
And
yeah,
if the company is going to pay for the automation software, like what is the budget for what I can do? Because
Mm.
sometimes you are the budget. They're like, just keep patching it up until it breaks. Just patch it, keep patching it. And so some system admins, that's all they do all day is just sit and patch up the stuff.
yeah, and that's because the IT department in any company is a cost for them, and it's amazing to me how they look at IT as we're kind of like this the redheaded stepchild, if you will, like you know what I'm saying? It just you
Well,
guys aren't really important.
that's the new movement. New movement now is no ops and serverless. So that's the new movement now, that you don't need operations. Um, However, I think you do need operation concepts, but that has to be a knowledge transfer to a developer and a security engineer and so forth and so on. But I just don't see, me personally, I don't know where, if I'm going into a new company and I have a private cloud, because some things are just not going to exist on Amazon or Google or wherever you choose. If I have to build that private cloud, I don't see the developer building that private cloud.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I go back and forth on those topics. But this is, if anyone is interested in looking at the NoOps movement, look at NoOps and serverless, because they're like, well, basically, if you're a Linux admin, you need to be doing develop. You need to know at least one programming language: Python, C++, or Ruby, or something, so that you can automate, so you can develop, automate, train, deploy, test, all of that. So
What is this no ops that you're referring to? Is that specific to Linux world or
IT world, period. No operations.
what? I don't.
No
What is
op.
what
No,
is what
no
is that?
ops.
I don't know what that is. I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, go look up no ops. That's the new thing there. It's no ops, where you don't have an operations team. You don't have an IT team.
What?
Yeah. Go look up no ops and serverless is the new movement.
Server lists?
Serverless.
Oh, lists. Okay.
Serverless and no ops.
Yeah. Okay. I'll make a point to do that.
Yeah. Look up no ops. That's the new movement. Like,
Wow.
if you are an IT person, that's you're going away. So that's the new thing and that's being taught at a lot of conferences as well too.
Wow.
Yeah. So learning Linux is just a foundation. That's how I look at Linux. Now, Linux used to be the big thing, and it's still big, and that's dependent on the the job rec in the industry. But if you're in the DoD field or whatever, Linux is big. VMware is big. Security Plus. Making a movement to containers and so forth. But if you're in the commercial realm, containers, no ops, Dockers, uh, huge. That's where you're at.
This is interesting stuff. we might have to have another conversation just on that.
That's fine. That's fine.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's
Okay.
fine. Yeah, we have a lot of stuff to talk about that's making the transition as the millennials are coming in. The idea of having an operations team is going away because the people are saying that I can just write a script and I can get rid of your entire operations team.
with that script. However, it's when it goes to the no ops, we tell our people like that's not it's not really it's a mindset because it's really not making you obsolete because the company that is providing the no ops service, those are still jobs.
Exactly. Yes.
Like,
Yes.
like it's still a job, so your skills are still needed, but it's that I I don't want to curse, but it's like this mental mind game they're playing with people. Like, oh, we're going to make it easy. We're going to make it simple. You still need to know it. Just because it's easy and simple, and they want to teach you their new platform and how to just put it in the. It's so funny how they just float it and put the little container in the box and what the container does. It's dumbing you down because you still have to know the basics. You still have to know the fundamentals in order to make all of these things happen. And so you have these big conversations and these big push for these platforms, and you're just like, we
Yeah.
my people think now they're going to be obsolete because now they're rushing and stopping what they're learning as far as the fundamentals to go jump on the new train, the new shiny bus. And it's just like, no, get your ticket back and go back to where you started from. Like that, you're not ready for this bus. Like this bus is a trick. It's a trick. Like get your fundamentals together first. Get those
Yeah.
together, and then you can use all of the resources to make your job easier. But don't fall for it just yet.
Yeah. Just to kind of close on that topic because this can go. This is a whole separate hangout here, but I know people will probably hear that and be scared shitless, But the truth is just like you said, Dionne. Scripting is fine, but somebody has to write the script. Okay, somebody has to maintain all these containers and all this other stuff we talked about that's in the cloud. So some jobs might go obsolete, but then it creates room for other jobs as well. So we're not going anywhere yet. Okay,
No,
maybe in 50 years from now, when robots can really take over and
Well, somebody still got to program those.
Yeah,
Somebody still got to calibrate.
Yeah, I mean it's so. Anyways, that's good stuff. I'm gonna look into that no ops movement, but
look into no ops and serverless.
Okay, cool.
Big movement.
All right, so tell us, ladies, about women in Linux. Why you started this movement, and what you're up to, and are men allowed?
Yeah, so we started the movement for the very beginning of the conversation of being alone. So I've been doing it for 17 years. And out of those 17 years, I've met 4 women, and it's been in the last 2 years.
Wow.
So when I say when I'm talking, I'm not speaking on developers that develop their stuff on a Linux platform. I'm talking real hardcore Linux admins who can take a server out of the box, throw it in a rack, cable it up, rack and stack it, kickstart the machine, build out an NFS cluster, so forth and so on. So that's what I'm referring to when I say that. So I've only met 4, and we were sitting down one day because we were looking and we were like, man, we always see girls who code, women who code, girl develop it, all of that, right? And I was like, well, what about the women who don't want to do just that? They want to learn about how to design a data center. Where's that movement at? Where is that movement at where you say, I want to learn how to build out a cloud? How do I do that? Where do I learn that at? How do I learn how to build Amazon? Where,
Infrastructure.
yeah, where's the infrastructure classes at? And so we sat there and we was like, well, we should do it. We were like, what we gonna name it? And I was like, I don't know, Women in Linux. I don't know. We just tossed it around, and so that's part of the what Women in Linux is that movement of knowing how to build out an infrastructure, how to secure it, what is cloud, uh, all the buzz terms that you hear about or whatever, you still need fundamentals. I don't care, and I just look at Linux as a basic fundamental. Like that's just your basic. Once you learn Linux, you're cool. Now you know how to debug and go and do what your thing, but now you got to build on top of that because you need to be a storage engineer as well too. You need to know how to take a NAS and put it in a rack, put a SAN in a rack, use fiber channel, convergence, 10 gig E, how to do that. How you build a converged cluster. Like it's so much, but these there's no there isn't a one pathway to learn it. You can go to college. I went to college. I got my degree in computer engineering, but I was working full time at the University of Washington as a Linux admin a whole year and a half before I graduated from college with my computer engineering degree. Again, the two just didn't coincide, but I had to get a degree because most companies are like, well, you don't have your degree. So I went and got a degree. So I got my degree. I don't use the Fourier transform. I don't use FFTs. I don't solder. I could if I needed to, but I don't. So I don't do that. So that was the reason for why we started Women in Linux, to give another perspective on what if you did want to do, I guess you could call it DevOps, but what if you did want to learn VMware and how to build out a cloud using VMware Cloud or something of that nature? Or, like, where's that niche at for women? Like women want to be in that field. I've been in it 17 years and I only ran into 4 women. That's crazy to me. But I was talking about this the other day. People were like, "Why you just now starting it?" Truth be told, my honest truth, I never saw it was a problem because I always was employed. I never had to look for a job. They just end up in my lap. So, but then you look back in retrospect, or it's like you were just blinded. Like there was never a problem for me that like, well, I'm gonna go apply here. If I apply, I might get that job. So I gotta not apply because I might get that job because they're always looking for women in IT that do Linux. And sometimes it can be a little insulting in the interviews. You'll get people that ask you really dumb questions.
Just because you're a woman, or
just because you're a woman and you're black. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
It's the question comes off like, well, how did you really learn Linux? How did you really do that? And I always respond with, they got this new thing out now. I was like, I don't know if you ever heard about it. It's called a book. And you pick it up and you read it and you go from there. So I mean, that's the premise behind a lot of stuff. But the reason why we're doing Women in Linux is to show that we could do, not just be developers, because we have that developer movement, but we can also do storage administration. We can also do security. We encompass every single thing under Women in Linux. Like I say, Linux is just a foundation to build on. It's your basics. Like I look at the RACSA and Security Plus as a basic that you need to know, and then you build everything else on top of that.
That's awesome. And so you also do conferences.
Yeah, we just did our online conference yesterday.
Our first virtual conf.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Yeah.
And so tell people a little bit about those conferences, like what's involved and all that.
Okay, so our first virtual conference yesterday, we kicked off with doing security scans. I'm tired of going to conferences where you go from room to room to room and look at presentations. Your average conference is about $1,800 just for the conference ticket. Then that's not to mention that it may be in San Francisco, it may be in Boston, or it may be in New York, and so you got to stay there for a week. So that's another $2,000. So you spent like $4 or $5,000, and the company didn't sponsor that, right? Okay, that's awesome. That's beautiful. So now what did I just learn? I networked. I get a lot of networking.
Yep.
Okay. I go to a party. We do the beer crawl. We get some food. We get fed
Run.
well. Yeah, you do the color run, the whole nine. That's awesome. And I network. But then I walk away and I'm $5,000 in debt unless I went for the diversity scholarship or if someone is funding the cause at work. Okay. So did I learn anything? Right? Did I really get my hands on? Probably not. Why? Because in order to get the hands on, there's another additional cost for you to do the hands on training, and that's $500 on top of that. And you only get one class that you can go train with. So you better pick a good one.
Because I've been inspired at the conference
All right.
on your
So,
new on your platform. I'm inspired to go and be a part of your movement.
and so it's all of that. So the whole reason for the virtual conference is it's for people who could not make the conference. Like if you can't afford to go to that conference, I want to bring you a conference right here to your lap. Like so we made it affordable and we also made it where you can actually sit at home and do it. So that if you did have a kid that you had to get off the phone with real quick, you could get off the phone. We're still going to keep continue. However, at least you don't have to worry about the cost of child care, or you have to worry about the cost of your of staying with someone, or whatever that case may be. Do we accept men? Hell yeah. Yeah, we have men in our group. We call them allies.
Right.
Yeah, you have to be realistic, okay? So for me, women in Linux is it's all about getting more women into IT from an infrastructure perspective, or ops perspective, or DevOps, however you want to look at it. However, the realistic goal is you must understand that when you go to a job, you are probably going to be working with majority men. So if you walk in thinking that you're going to be working with all women, sorry, joke's on you.
You need to
Okay.
get off of that pony really quick. And then with this virtual it was a training conference, and we trained on technology platforms that are being used in the field. We talked about Chef was there. We did AWS. We did Docker, MongoDB. You know, these were training courses. Every session, even the keynote, was a training on security, you know, so it wasn't the fluff. You know, at Women in Linux, we cut out the fluff. We are not fluff women at all. The industry is not fluff. We're not coming in the field at the perspective of woe is me and give me this handout. It's tough. This business is tough. It takes work, but you know what, we're going to be here to support you in your efforts, and we're going to give you the skills that you need to be able to compete and stay afloat. And it takes hard work. You can't come in here and skate at all. And do people skate based on the time that they have? Absolutely. But we don't do whiners either. Like, you know why you don't get it? Because you didn't study. Like, we can go and see that you haven't even looked at a class. You know, it's definitely about accountability with us. When it comes to, you know, things of that nature. But this conference, it was amazing, because one thing we try to do, we call it the technology pie, you know, because technology, IT is a business, and so they market towards certain, I call them worker fields. You need coders. Google needs a whole bunch of coders, so we're going to teach you how to code. We're going to do all that type of stuff. So infrastructure being the technology pie, well, us as infrastructure people know that's just a foundation. We had a gamers panel,
Mhm.
which was awesome. Going into the wild, wild west of gaming, what you can do with gaming. I mean, it was just totally awesome, awesome experience. It
Yeah.
was. It was fun. We had a virtual pre-party. We had a
Free
virtual
conference.
after party. It was it was just cool, and we want to just crash the stereotypes about technology and just the mundaneness of it. Like, with this field, you can do whatever you want to do and how you want to do it,
Mhm.
and we're going to use it. We're going to use it to our advantage and find the technology or the partnerships to be able to deliver the training, the knowledge, how we want to do it.
I love it. So it kind of gives them a taste of all these different
Everything,
areas. You
everything.
know,
Everything.
That was the goal. It was to give is to give you a taste. Like, so we did security scans with SCAP or OSCAP if you're in Linux. We also did AWS, Docker, MongoDB, the gamers panel on how women can get into gaming. Also, how to get into VR and AR, how to get your content into that. I mean, you just had one in Orlando. You just had the Call of Duty conference over in Orlando. They just had the Key Arena. I forget the name of the game, but it was from August the 8th to the 13th. The grand prize is an international gaming conference. The grand prize for that was $9 million. How many women were there? How many women were there? How many women were in the gaming industry itself?
And this is the play.
Yeah, that's the play. And then there's
Play.
gaming. Then there's gaming casters as well too. Like, you can be a game caster and talk about the game and the teams and so forth and so on. So the whole point of yesterday's conference is to say, look, you want to be in technology. Here's some things that you can do, but I'm not going to tell you you could just do these things. I'm going to give you a hands-on training on what you can learn about these, and you can figure out what you want to do with the rest of that for yourself. But I'm going to be here to help navigate you to where you could go.
that is a really, really fantastic movement you've got going on, and I could see that you're going to help a lot of people.
Trying,
A lot of people.
trying.
And I love your mindset about the whole thing. It's about, it all starts up here. It's
Mm,
really where it starts, and I love that because I talk about that quite a bit. It's actually the basis of my whole YouTube channel. Is it starts up here, and then it kind of takes off from there, and it's no fluff. I talk all real raw, whatever I've learned in the 18
Rough and
years.
raw.
yeah,
Yes.
And you can't put a coating on this. You can't make it look all flowery because it's tough.
yeah,
It takes a lot of work to be successful, whatever you label that as. But
mm,
so
yeah,
that's really good stuff. So I'll put the link to your website down below, and then
mm,
I guess people can contact you that way.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. We
they'll
got
pro-
some more conferences coming up too.
That'll be awesome. Now there'll probably be a lot of people commenting on this video,
I'm sure.
asking about Linux stuff. I know the last one I did with Dan, we got a bunch of questions on that, and thankfully Dan jumped in and started helping out because the Linux stuff's beyond me.
Oh, well, if here's something for your viewers, if you really want to know, I teach Linux every Wednesday and every Saturday for free. We have virtual meetups that we meet every Wednesday from 7 to 9 East Coast time or Eastern Standard Time, and then we meet from 10 to 12. We just went over the elk stack. I'm getting ready to transition from the elk stack over to how to automate your installs. So yeah, we're gonna start doing more of that. So I mean, if people want to join, they don't have to ask questions. You just need to do it,
Yeah.
and you need to do it by
And that's
coming
on
to the meetup.
meetup.com / women in Linux. They can come to and our Wednesday meetups, and then we do a Saturday study session. Also, we are on all the social media as Women in Linux, at Women in Linux, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, the world, just
What
Women in Linux.
what was the URL to join your trainings on Wednesdays?
Meetup.com/women in Linux, and they can register there. And if you're new to the industry, if you've been in the industry and you just want to, dust off your skills, you want to see what it's about, ask questions, this is the place to definitely do it. Um, Pretty soon, I think maybe the beginning of the year, we'll probably split it off to like beginners, intermediate, and advanced. But right now, we're just like a melting pot because we try to let people, well, we don't try to let people know, we let people know that Linux runs the world. It is
It's
the
everywhere.
enterprise. It's the enterprise platform, and people are just like, what is Linux? What does Linux do? It's like Linux is on your phone, it's on your watch, your watches. It's everywhere.
The
Right
cars.
now, my computer is running Linux behind the scenes, cars, everything. And so it's just like Linux is not new. It's the mystery mass, and we're gonna give you little bits at a time about where you can go. We're gonna give you Linux as a foundation and show you the world with it.
This is awesome. All right, excellent. I'm going to put that down there. But hey, I want to thank both of you so much for coming on today.
Thanks
That's
for
no
having
problem.
us.
This was some solid gold that you have just laid
It's
out
no
here.
problem.
I think we are well over 30 minutes. What do you say?
A little bit, but hey, I'm good as long as you're good.
I'm not mad at all. I can go on all day. I'm good.
This is really good. I think some people are going to walk away with some really good value from this. And
We
I'm
call
sure.
them digital. We got a new term from the Sphere TV. We did an interview, and the Gary, he calls them digital gems, and so that's been our new term, digital gems.
And you definitely delivered on that. So wow, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm sure that you will get a lot of Linux people, maybe just Microsoft admins even
Oh yeah.
getting some interest now after
Yeah.
what they heard you say joining your meetup. So
Oh yeah,
uh,
because we teach on Azure as well. We teach on all the cloud technologies: Azure, IBM, AWS, Google
I
Cloud.
I think I need to make an appearance on there because
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
could
come
I could
on.
I could use some of that knowledge as well.
yeah.
But all right, excellent. I'm going to let you ladies run, and again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're
We
welcome.
we may have to do a second session on some other topics, at some
Cool.
point, or and if I can help you ladies with anything, let me know as well.
Sure.
We'll
But hey, enjoy the rest of your Sunday,
we'll do.
You
and
too.
we'll catch you on the next ride.
Okay.
Awesome. Have a
All
good
right,
Sunday yourself.
thanks a lot. Talk to you later.
All right. Now, bye.
All right, bye bye.